Good morning, good evening, everyone. Welcome to this session of the MS stage. Today, we are going to look at a fairly exciting product, which is a cloud product in Azure, in Microsoft Azure, which is called Windows Virtual Desktop. My name is Lyes Ouarti. I'm a cloud solution architect working at Microsoft. I am based out of the UAE, and I work here with customers here in the region. Just a quick disclaimer. So, although this session, or I'm not representing my employer in this session, so anything I say will be just an expression of my own opinion. Okay. With that said, let's turn around to the deck of slides. So we are going to basically deep dive into this new service, but I will make sure that we have enough demos. Just to make it interesting for all of you. So what is Windows Virtual Desktop? Windows Virtual Desktop is basically a combination or an evolution of existing services that Microsoft have been providing for long years. So if you remember what we used to do on-prem, we used to basically deploy RDS servers, which are remote desktop services. And these are kind of like servers that you used to deploy on-prem, and basically what you used to do is that you would take on-prem kind of like infrastructure. You would take you would take on-prem infrastructure, and then you would deploy kind of like a bunch of servers, which will have roles like gateway, broker, SQL server, licensing server, and then you would manage them yourself, and then you would deploy the session host, where basically your users will connect to consume either a desktop in a VDI infrastructure or an app. And basically, it is using like, for example, on-prem, it is also using the RDP protocol, and basically customers can do this. And the way to provision this is that they have to buy the servers, or if they have already the servers, they have to spin up the virtual machines, and then they have to manage the management layer, which we will call the control plane, and then also they will have to manage the session host where the users connect to. With Windows Virtual Desktop, what happens is that Microsoft made the control plane, all of these roles, completely managed by Microsoft. And basically, Microsoft use its own Azure services, platform as a service services, like, for example, Azure Key Vault, Azure SQL, Azure Web Apps, and much more, to basically build and manage it on behalf of customers. So what this means is that basically the attention or the management, the customer management, shifts from managing the entire kind of like VDI solution into only managing the VMs that their users connect to, and then worrying only about the user experience. Why is it a big deal? It is a big deal because, especially in these times, for example, with COVID or without COVID, it gives an opportunity for customers and anyone basically to deploy a reliable VDI solution in the cloud. Literally, it could be done in hours. And you can take advantage of the agility of the cloud, i.e. you can scale down, scale up, pay only for what you need, but more importantly, deploy the solution very fast and use only what you need and be very agile. So this is kind of like the story of Windows Virtual Desktop. Also, the other added value that Microsoft provide with Windows Virtual Desktop is really a unique operating system, which is only available on the Microsoft Cloud. This operating system is a special version of Windows 10. It is Windows 10 multi-session. What this means is that we offer the customer the same Windows 10 that they use on-prem in their laptops and desktops, etc. But we make it multi-session, which means that if they deploy one session host, which is one VM, we give the opportunity for many users to connect to the same VM, therefore decreasing their cost, but making sure that their application works as normal because it's the usual Windows 10 that Microsoft provides. We also have a very tight integration with the Office 365. So basically, if customers have licenses of Office 365, it is very easy to basically spin up Windows 10 multi-sessions. It's not the only operating system that we support, but it's very easy to spin up that with Office 365 already deployed and make it super easy for their users to start working. You can imagine that basically the developers need to have, like, for example, kind of like a compliant environment where they have to go and work, and this environment should be accessible from all over the world. Obviously, you have now multiple options to do it, like with the new announcement with what the Microsoft is doing with GitHub, and the ability to spin up like environment on the fly. But for certain use cases, like for example, for financial service institution, or where you absolutely have to have like a kind of like a managed environment, completely kind of like managed by the customer, you can spin up this infrastructure very quickly. I gave you the example of the developers, but it could be anything. It could be like normal users, it could be new interns, or it could be new employees that because of COVID, their laptops did not come on time. It could be for anything. Like the possibility is like you can do a lot of things with the service. Okay, so when it comes to basically the thing that we support on Azure, so basically we support two types of operating systems. So you can spin up Windows Virtual Desktop with two separate operating systems. So the first one is client side, like client operating system. We support Windows 7, although it's end of life. So we give customers 3 years free patching on Windows 7 if they do it on Azure, on Windows Virtual Desktop. This is just great because some customers are still in Windows 7, mainly because of legacy applications. So that's possible to run a VDI type infrastructure using Windows 7. But also, obviously, most of the customer, if they can, will go to the Windows 10, and we have two flavors: it's Windows 10 single and multi-sessions. So in order to be covered, this is kind of like from a licensing perspective. So in order to use Windows 10 and Office 365, these are the options that are available for customers. So if a customer has Office 365 E3 and E5 or E5 or a Windows 10 VDA per user, or I will let you kind of like read all of these kind of like licensing requirement. If you need kind of like any kind of like support or help, please reach out to your licensing service, either at Microsoft or at your partner, and hopefully they will help with that. The other type of operating system that we support is the server operating system. So you can spin up Windows Virtual Desktop, VDI solution based on Windows 2012, Windows 2016, and Windows 2019. If you want to do that, you have to have RDS CAL licenses, and basically, if you have active software assurance with your licensing, you can basically use these licenses and deploy them on Azure. So this is it. This is kind of like the service that we have on Azure. Very innovative. It is very easy to deploy, and then it can scale rapidly. You can deploy literally thousands of VMs and scale to multiple thousand of users in a very short time. So obviously we're taking advantage of the kind of like virtualization that we use on Azure, and then basically with this service, the things that the benefits that you have using this service is obviously mobility. So you can access it from anywhere in the world. So you spin up your Windows Virtual Desktop. You have users in country, out of the country, connecting from the office, connecting out of the office. They can connect securely into the service. Security. So basically, your data always lives on Azure, and then we have tight integration with native Azure security services like Windows Defender ATP on the host themselves, Azure Security Center, Azure Sentinel. You can integrate it with Azure Firewall. You can establish connectivity back on-prem with using site-to-site VPN, using Azure VPN gateways or ExpressRoute. So you see where I'm going. This is very highly, you can deploy a very highly secure environment using Azure native services. Scalability. So basically, this is kind of like basically you can use the infinite scale of the cloud. So you can start very small, where you say, okay, I want to start with maybe 50 users or 100 users, and then see how it goes. And then if you need to scale the next day into 1,000 users, it's just a matter of increasing your pool and adding VMs, and you should be good to go. Compatibility, because we offer all sorts of operating system. Mainly, I guess everyone would be interested in Windows 10 and multi-session. Basically, apps that you have on-prem, as long as they were working on Windows 10, they will also work on this platform. So no more kind of like trying to hack Windows 2016 and make it look like Windows 10. You can use Windows 10 in the cloud, and basically you can also use the multi-session version of our Windows 10. Performance, so basically you size it as you'd like. Basically you can use any type of VM size that we have on Azure. You can use general purpose VMs, you can use memory optimized, storage optimized, and you can use GPU as well. There are some customers out there who use kind of like GPU intensive applications, like a CAD type of application. So you can use VMs that have in Azure that has GPU. Management, basically you can manage your images, your users using the Azure portal. And then cost, basically you can use the cost optimization techniques that we have on Azure to make your cost as optimal as possible. This is getting into the technical side of it. So basically in Windows Virtual Desktop, you have 3 components. The first component is what we have here, which is the client side. This is what you use to connect to. We have all sorts of client. We have obviously a web client, so you can use a web browser and connect to the service and connect to your desktop or applications. You can use a thick client that we provide, which I'm going to show you later. It's a small application that you install on Windows 10 or any other Windows operating system. And then we support its cross-platform as well. So we support Android, we support Apple devices, and we support all sorts of devices. So it is going to touch all of you users, and your users will be able to work with Windows Virtual Desktop with their favorite client. The other part that is in the solution is this part here, which is what you deploy inside your subscription in Azure. So what you deploy inside your subscription is basically your VMs. Okay, so this layer here is your VMs, and this is kind of like to publish either desktops or applications. So you can do one or both. You have your Azure Active Directory for authentication, and this means that in order to get to the service, you need to authenticate first with Azure Active Directory, which means that you can enable all the security features that Azure Active Directory offers, like MFA, conditional access, and much more. So you can very much secure your Windows Virtual Desktop deployment using identity. So before a user gets into the service, they need to go through the measures that you are going to configure on Azure Active Directory. Then the second part is domain services. So basically a real Active Directory. So we support the normal Active Directory on VMs, and we also support Azure Active Directory domain services. So and this is because these VMs will be joined to the domain. And then basically, as I said, the first thing that you do is you authenticate using Azure Active Directory. Once you are inside and you're presented with either desktop or application, you are going to log in with your Active Directory credentials. The fourth part is anything. So basically, this is where you keep your user profiles and file server and stuff like that. So you can use Azure files and Azure NetApp files or a file server cluster. The thing that you see in the middle, this is the control plane that I was telling you about. This is what Microsoft manages. And then basically we spin up these control planes kind of like in multiple regions around the world, and we manage it on top of customers. And then these control planes, we use our own Azure Web Services or PaaS services, Platform as a Service, and then we spin up the web access layer, the diagnostics, the gateway, the broker, and the SQL database, and we manage it for the customer. So basically what the customer has to manage is only this part here. They only have to manage their own kind of like VMs and storage, but they never have to go and worry about the control plane and make sure that it's highly available, for example, or secure or scalable. Microsoft does this for you. So I'm just gonna pause here the presentation and then just go and do a quick demo. So I'm just gonna stop here and then launch my browser. So I'm just gonna show you first what kind of like a deployment looks like. So I'm just gonna connect to my portal, so portal.azure.com. I'm just gonna log in. So once I log in, I will go and deploy Windows Virtual Desktop. This is a new experience that we have. So the first thing is that you are going to create a host pool. I'm just going to show you my existing host pools and application groups and stuff like that. So I already have some host pools, but I will just simulate for you a new host pool. So I'm just going to add a new host pool just to show you the experience. So I will just select a subscription, for example, and then I will create a new resource group. I call it WVD test because WVD already exists, and then I'm going to give it a name, a WVD MS stage, and then I'm going to put the metadata into a region. This metadata is not your user information, but the objects that are created by Windows Virtual Desktop. So I'm going to choose this region, and then what I'm going to do is I am going to select either is it going to be personal or pooled. So personal means that there is mapping between users and VMs and session hosts, and pooled means that a VM may host multiple users. Like if you deploy Windows 10 multi-session, you can deploy you can have multiple users connecting in the same VM and working on the same VM to save cost. And this is kind of like the most obvious model, unless for whatever reason you have to choose personal. This is kind of like the most popular way of deploying Windows Virtual Desktop. And then what you have to do is just selecting the max number of users per VM. So let's say you decide to go 8 just to spread your users. And then you choose the algorithm on which the users connect to your infrastructure. And basically we have two kinds of algorithm, breadth first, which is kind of like a round robin, and then depth first, which means that the kind of like Windows Virtual Desktop control plane will exhaust a server at a time. So if you have configured 8 session max limit per server, it will kind of like fill in the first server, and then once the first server is filled in, then it will move to the next one, etc. It can be, this algorithm can be useful in scenarios where you want to scale on demand and basically save cost as much as possible. So I'm just gonna select breadth first, and I'm just gonna go and select my virtual machines, and in here I'm gonna go yes. And then I'm gonna just, for example, put it in this resource group. And in here, I have all the regions that we have on Azure, so I can deploy in all the regions available, like around the world. So, for example, I can choose West Europe if I wanted to, West Europe, and select that region. And then this is where your VMs are going to live. Okay, so basically, you can choose any region that we have on Azure. And then here you are going to select the size of the VMs that you are going to deploy. And as I said, you can select any size available. So you can select compute optimized or general purpose or memory optimized. You can select any type of VM. This is basically a sizing exercise that you have to do depending on your applications that runs on Windows Virtual Desktop. Are they memory intensive? Are they CPU intensive? Are they both? Are they GPU intensive? So you choose the right size of the VMs, and basically you can do that. Once you deploy it, it's not a problem. If you want to change your mind, it's just a matter of resizing the VMs to any size that you want to. and you should be good to go. Number of VMs, this is where you select the number of VMs. So I can select 1, or I can select 200 if I wanted to. So this is the number of VMs that this will deploy. And then the prefix of the VMs, like for example, I'm going to call it WVD. And then what happens is that because I'm deploying 200 VMs, the first VM will be called WVD-0, the second one -1, etc. until WVD-199. And then in here, I can select the VM or the image that I want to deploy. So basically, I can deploy Windows 10 multi-session, different version, Windows 2019, Windows 10 multi-session with the latest version with Microsoft Office 365 apps. And then I can go ahead and basically browse the images. So I can search on the images if I want to deploy a particular image. And what I've done beforehand, I created my own image. So basically, I went ahead, prepared an image which is called my WVD image. I installed all the software that I wanted to. I took a sysprep of that image, and then I took it in my image gallery, and I stored it here. And then now basically I can use it to deploy my Windows Virtual Desktop. Then you choose your type of OS disk. You can go with the different type of tiers. You choose your VNet, and then basically you put it in the VNet. As you can see here, there is no requirement for a public IP. So basically, I am going to select no in public IP. There is no need because basically the session hosts, they do outbound connection to the control plane. So there is never a connection that comes from the internet directly into the session host, which makes the solution very secure. And then I will have to provide my Active Directory credentials. So these VMs will be joined to the domain on the fly. Basically, this is the idea. And then in here, I'm gonna basically connect this host pool into a workspace. So a workspace is just like a logical concept where your users will be presented with either desktop or application. And the idea is that you can create multiple workspace. So when a user connect, they can see the workspace that they are assigned to. So for example, you can have a workspace for finance department, another one for HR department, or for engineering, and you know where I am going. So after you select kind of like this, let's call it engineering, and then you create this workspace. You go and configure your tags, and then you go and review and create. I forgot one of the feature here, which is the UPN, etc. You go hit review and create, and you deploy your Windows Virtual Desktop. After a few minutes, I'm just gonna show you the end result. You will have something like this. So this I deployed today. So I deployed the host pool with kind of like the name is WVD. And then if in the session host, basically I have maybe it's not this one. Let me just go back. Pulled 100 first. Let me just go and make sure that actually, yeah, that's it. I didn't select the right description. Okay, so this is the one that I deployed. I made the mistake in terms of the description. So I have a host pool which is called WVD pool 1. And if I go to session host, I should see 2 session hosts here that are running, which are 2 VMs. And basically, these VMs are waiting for me to basically connect to, and waiting for my users to connect. And that's it. This is kind of like the deployment. Very easy, very intuitive. So what happens on the other side? Now, once I do this, my users have a couple of ways to connect to the service. So the first way is basically to use the browser. So if I want to use the browser, I will go here and I say rdweb. This is the URL, and then the system will me for authentication. I guess this one is not prompting me, so let me just show you the experience. So I'm just going to sign out because my credentials are saved in this browser. So I'm just going to sign out quickly. Okay, I have signed out. Now it's signing in again. Now it will ask me which user I want to log in with. So I have this user, and then I'm just going to put the password. So this first authentication that you see here is the authentication with Azure Active Directory. So imagine I have not enabled any kind of like MFA, multi-factor authentication, or conditional access, or any kind of like security on the service. But you can imagine that it can be done in a matter of seconds or minutes. So I could have enabled that, and I would be prompted with multi-factor authentication to keep my connection very secure. This is just a test, so I did not enable it. And then I presented with basically the resources that my administrator has provisioned me. So I have a desktop, which is called a default desktop, but obviously you can change the name. I can click on it, and then here, as I mentioned, it will prompt me for the second authentication, which is the not the Azure Active Directory, but the Active Directory authentication. So it's two authentication in order to get to the final workload. I have my credentials saved, so I'm just gonna hit submit, and then as you can see here, in a couple of seconds, my desktop will load, and I will be able to start working. Okay, so this is my Windows 10 in my browser, and then I can in my image I have all sorts of software already installed, Excel, OneNote, and I could have installed any kind of like software. Remember that if I done my job correctly, I should have connectivity back to my on-prem data center where I have my applications using site-to-site VPN or using ExpressRoute. So in theory, I should now be able to connect to all my on-prem connection. So this is the first way, as you can see here, a browser will do. Now, the second way to do it is to use the client. And basically, I'm just going to show you something interesting here. So what happens is that the first time I connect, now I have my default desktop in the start menu. So instead of coming to the browser and stuff like that, I can just go hit this button, and then basically this will automatically connect me to my desktop. Again, if I publish an application, it will be the same thing. So I'm just gonna show you RDP. So this is the client, so remote desktop client. So this is the second way to log in. Obviously, it's the same login mechanism. So the first one, you log in with the Azure Active Directory. The second one, you log in with Active Directory. My credentials are saved. So basically, I don't have to log in again with Azure Active Directory. This can be changed, but in my behavior, I didn't need to do so. So I'm just gonna put now the password of my second authentication, and then I will log into my desktop basically. And there you go. And then I can start working either on the browser, either on and you can see how fast it is and how intuitive it is to kind of like start working. So in terms of management, if I go back to my browser now, basically I can go and go back one step, and then go to my users, and then search for my user 5, for example, and then this is my my user 5 where I'm connected, and then I can go here and say, hey, actually this user 5 is connected. So I can send a message to this user, and I say, hi, we have a maintenance, and you have to disconnect or something like that. And then the user, what happens is that the user will get a message in their session. For example, that you need to do some maintenance, you can send them that message, and then you can do all sorts of things. I'm just gonna give you an example. So you can log off, disconnect. So I'm just gonna log off my user, and then this session will basically disappear. So you can force them to log off for maintenance perspective, and then all sorts of features that we don't have the time to go and explore all of them. But I will just show you basically in how easy it is to also publish applications. So I publish the desktop. So if I wanted to publish an application, for example, I will go into my application group, and then I will go ahead and click on add, and this will basically will scan my start menu with the application that are deployed in my start menu, and I will just for example select Excel, give a quick description. I can spin up a command line kind of like or an execution at the start of the software. In my case, I don't want to, and then just click on save, and this will basically add Excel into my users. And then what I will have to do, obviously, is that I will have to go and assign my users to this application. So who can see my application? In my case, it's again, for example, user 5. So I'm just going to select user 5, and then user 5. Next time they connect to Windows Virtual Desktop, they will be able to see Excel. So now, hopefully, if I refresh, I should see Excel coming up very soon. So it will take a little bit of time. So we will come back to this, and then you should see Excel as a published application in my desktop. Great. So we've done quite a bit now. Let me tell you in the last 10 minutes about some cool stuff that we have as kind of like as an add-on to Windows Virtual Desktop. So basically, we also have a technology, which is a Microsoft technology that we acquired, which is called FSLogix. So FSLogix is very important in terms of profile management of the profile. As you remember now, what we are doing is that we are deploying multiple session hosts that are running Windows 10 multi-session. And then basically, if I deploy, for example, 5 VMs, I can say, actually, I want to give 100 users access to these 5 VMs, right? So I didn't do any sizing, but let's say I am doing that. And then basically, if I want to do that, basically, if I am one of these 100 users, if I connect to the control plane and then into my my session host, and then I start working and I save kind of like documents on the desktop or on my document or something like that, and then I leave the session, I just log off out of the session, and then the next morning, if I connect to the control plane, maybe it will send me to this VM here, not to this VM. So what happens is that when I go to my desktop or my documents or to my Outlook or to any kind of like things where I have to persist the data, I will not find my data. So this is why we have a technology which is called FSLogix, and then basically what it does, it works with an external storage service that you have to choose. So basically we have multiple options in terms of the external storage service. So the first option is Azure Files, which is the popular kind of like Azure file pass service that we have. And obviously here we have a couple of flavors. We have standard and premium. So we need to design it properly in terms of how many users and performance, etc. We have another very popular service, which is called Azure NetApp. So it is called ANF, Azure NetApp. And then lastly, you can use a kind of like any kind of like file server on Azure. So you can use Storage Space Direct or any kind of like server or any kind of like similar solution. Once you have that, all of these services are capable of doing SMB protocol. And then what happens is that you take or you install the agent as part of your image, which means that an agent of FSLogix, which means that FSLogix will be running on all of these VMs. And then what happens is that every time you log in, FSLogix at the login time will basically fetch your profile, and the profile is stored in a form of a VHD. And we have different type of profiles. So we have user profiles. That's where you store your documents and stuff like that. We have Office 365 container. This is where, for example, you cache your Outlook containers and this kind of stuff. And then we have also Java redirection. So basically, if you have, Java-based applications, you can redirect the I/O into an external storage, and therefore, once you log in again, you'll find all your data there. So what happens with this with this technology is that now when a user logs into Windows Virtual Desktop, what happens is that they will log into the control plane again, and then they will go to their session host, and then automatically this VHD will be mounted into the session host. And the user, it will be seamless for the user. He or she are just working on the kind of like their profile, like my documents and stuff like that. They don't know that actually their profile is not on the VM itself, but it's on the VHD on one of these storage services that I was talking about. The next day I connect the same user. If he connects to this VM, for example, this VHD is mounted into this VM instead, and you see where this is going. This is very efficient to do that, and basically this is super popular, especially if you want to do a Windows Virtual Desktop multi-session or pooled scenario. Now, if I come back to my slide, I just want to take you through some cool stuff in terms of how is the Windows Virtual Desktop kind of like a login happening. Okay, so as I mentioned, this part here of the solution is fully managed by Microsoft. This is your client, and this is what you deploy on Azure. But this is kind of like how the authentication works, right? How do you get to the service? So first of all, we have kind of like a very small Windows Virtual Desktop agent that runs on the VMs, and these agents, they do outbound connection into the broker. This is what you see here as 0. So these VMs, that's why they don't require a public IP address, because the VMs are never accessed from the outside using public IP address. They do kind of like an outbound connection through a secure tunnel into the broker in the Microsoft managed control plane. And then what happens is that, as I was mentioning, using your client, you do a request to authenticate against the Azure Active Directory tenant. And then here, just to remind you, you can enable things like multi-factor authentication, conditional access, and all the good stuff that Azure Active Directory offers you. Once you do that, what happens is that you will be presented with the web access. And this is kind of like what I was showing you here in the browser, in the sense that the web access is responsible of, I don't want to reconnect, is responsible of showing you kind of like the resources that are made available. And let me just try to refresh this page to see if we have Excel running. Just quickly, like a cheeky check, and then we will come back to our flow. As you can see here now, Excel is deployed. So this is the web access component that gives you the resources that basically you have access to. And then what happens is that after that, in number 3, your client, which is this client here, is going to make a connection to the gateway. And the VM itself is going to make another connection, another outbound connection as a 4 into the same gateway. And the RDP traffic will flow this way. And then this is how we connect securely into your VDI. Now, yesterday at Ignite, we announced a new feature which should be available very soon, which is basically in this step of 3 and 4. If you have connectivity into the session host themselves using, for example, VPN or ExpressRoute, we basically skip this connection, and we make a connection directly over ExpressRoute, which makes the connection kind of like direct. But this was only announced yesterday, and it should come in the next few months. And this is kind of like the authentication flow. And then basically, once you authenticate, you can start working. As I mentioned, you can publish desktops, and you can publish applications as well. So this is what we covered in about 42 minutes. Obviously, there is a lot to cover, but in a nutshell, what we covered today is the Azure Virtual Desktop service, what you can do with it in terms of how it can help you put your users very quickly, deploy them and give them a secure environment, secure desktops in the cloud, so they can start working and access applications that are on the internet, and also applications that are deployed on-prem. And hopefully you have seen the value of being able to deploy this solution very quickly, scale to multiple thousand of users, with always security in mind, with always keeping secure. So with that, I would like to thank you for your attention, and I hope that you are enjoying this MS Stage conference, and I'll speak to you soon. Take care.